Why do I love Burning Crusade pre-patch? I love Burning Crusade. I love Classic WoW, right? Vanilla, Burning Crusade, all that. But what is it specifically about the pre-patch that I love so much? It's a very special time where you have Burning Crusade talents and everything in, but you're doing all level 60 content. And there's certain things that have changed. They've re-itemized a few things. They've changed how some of the content works, how the PvP works, stuff like that. It's a very, very special time. It's very, very enjoyable for a lot of people, partially because it's so rare. In all of WoW's history, there has only been almost 2 months, just about 2 months of Burning Crusade pre-patch. I'm talking the original pre-patch, I'm talking the 2 weeks that we had in 2021, and I'm talking about the 2 weeks now that we've had so far. We're gonna have 1 more week. So the Burning Crusade pre-patch is a very special time because it's very similar to like an old event that Soda Poppin did this years ago. It was called Project 60, where it was Legion. It was Legion WoW, but then you would only level up to 60 and you would do the level 60 content with all the Legion talents and abilities and everything. It was pretty easy, right? But it was like a fun little like community thing. You kind of have like Burning Crusades Project 60 and everybody's forced to play it right now. And it's very fun. Playing this version of WoW that is briefly available to us in the pre-patch where you're halfway into vanilla and halfway into Burning Crusade, essentially, that's really what I think should be the essence. That's really what I think should be the basis of what Classic Plus should be. The basis of what a Classic Plus should be here when it comes to design. So you start the design process of making Classic Plus at this midpoint that we are currently playing, and then you can tune things up and down from there. There's this Classic Plus survey that Jordy's a friend of mine, he made this survey, and it's actually a bunch of surveys, and it's really long, and I'm like, damn it, Jordy, like this is so long. But it's like a community survey just to see what people think about different sort of stuff. I'll be honest, whenever I look at some of it and I see some of this stuff, it's trying to be comprehensive, but I'm like, man, people gotta understand what is classic, what is vanilla. And Classic Plus isn't exactly vanilla, right? It's not exactly vanilla WoW, but the design elements of what a Classic Plus should be entirely grounded in what vanilla WoW is, or what Classic WoW is, quote. Season of Discovery was not that. The intent of Season of Discovery was to literally discover, hey, what can we throw at the wall in Classic WoW on the Classic client and just see what happens? And I do not think what was given to us was Classic WoW. Now, with that being said, not everything about Season of Discovery was bad. There were some things with Season of Discovery that they did well. There were some things that were good ideas. As a Classic main, SOD was nothing like Classic. Yeah, and it really wasn't. I actually think the best version overall of Paladin, you could make a strong argument that the best version of like the Paladin in WoW was the SOD Paladin, because you had like the Wrath prop Paladin, you had kind of Burning Crusade Ret with like some other stuff mixed in. The real problem with SOD was the systems to get there were not classic systems. And I do think that's a really big deal, and it's very delicate. It's the journey, not the destination type of thing. It really is that, but also from a design standpoint. They threw all these sort of like Band-Aid fixes and design shortcuts to like get from point A to point B. And I remember saying this, I remember doing SOD and I was like, pressing my buttons is fun. The rotation and stuff, I didn't really feel like I was playing classic, but it did feel more like I was playing, like it felt like I was playing like a private server of WoW, like a fun server. Not like a traditional private server that was meant to be Blizz-like with like progressive itemization, and not like a Nostalrius private server, but like those old private servers that people would just like have a bunch of fun items and like they had like real money transactions to buy cosmetics and stuff like that. That's kind of what it felt like. You know, I'd be walking around and I'd be seeing like these warlocks flying around their demon form and stuff, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Now, again, a lot of the gameplay elements of SOD were very good. I want to be very clear about that. I think they did do some good things there, and I think there is some things to learn from SOD, but Season of Discovery was absolutely retail minus. It was not Classic Plus, not in the slightest. And that's coming from me being somebody who I played the beginning of SOD. I didn't really like the middle very much, but the end of SOD, I played a little bit of the end of SOD and I thought it was good. I do believe that if the design decisions of Classic Plus are grounded in the mentality of the original design principles of vanilla WoW, of Burning Crusade, I think you can make an unbelievable product, but it's so delicate. It is so unbelievably delicate. You just have to be careful. You can't approach the design of Classic Plus with like the retail design mentality, the retail design process, the modern WoW design process. It's not the same. You can't make things for both versions of the game. You can't double dip. It's not gonna work. In fact, and I know that some people are probably not gonna like this. Like if you work at Blizzard and you're like a creative at Blizzard, I'm not trying to take anything away from you, okay, when I say this, but you have to know, like, First off, one thing, this nobody wants to hear this, but this is the truth. The I think you do, but you don't line is true about some things. It really is. And I think a lot of the people that like, oh, this is like a cool idea. This is a fun idea. In reality, you can't be throwing things like Mythic Plus in the Classic. That's not Classic. Even the idea of like different difficulties. I've said that I think they should do a heroic mode for raids for pre-nerf and a non-heroic for post-nerf, where you get like one more piece of loot per boss or something. I think that's fine in Burning Crusade. But in like a Classic Plus, I don't really think you should have multiple difficulties for the raids. I don't think you should be, I think that the design principle of Classic WoW and what Classic WoW is like very much contingent on player agency. What is player agency? The players need to have the ability to play the game the way that they want to play it. Not only it's like, okay, they can play the game and they can grind super hard and they can push really hard for something, but they know what they're getting. Like, hey, I can grind this thing out and I can push it and I can get to Exalted Reputation and I get this mount, right? For example, right? We're talking about like the Winter Spring mount. I think this kind of stuff is very, very important. It's very important to not mess with the game too much. And I really feel strongly that the Burning Crusade pre-patch is a wonderful, wonderful starting point of the design process of what a Classic Plus should be. You tune some things up, you tune some things down. And I think whenever it comes to like things like itemization, I think whenever it comes to some things like itemization, I think the power creep needs to be adjusted a little bit. I made a video like literally 7-8 years ago on my YouTube channel talking about power creep in vanilla WoW. You can go back and watch it if you want. Maybe I'll talk about it again on stream sometime, make another video about it and go in depth. Some of this itemization adjustment and stuff like that is important, but again, very delicate. And you can't snowball the game out of control. Like if you're adding some content in the game, you want to implement a lot of things. You don't want to like go back and rebuild everything from scratch. There are some things that you get to rebuild from scratch. Like the idea of Scarlet Enclave was really cool, but there was a lot of reused assets and stuff like that. You can make some new stuff, but it just has to feel classic. Look at the way that they made the textures in the past. Look at the way that they made the models in the past. Study that and build off of that. Last night I did this survey. I did the intro survey and we're gonna do more of the survey stuff throughout the day. I think 40-man raids should be like the penultimate raids should be the 40-man raids, but that doesn't mean you can't have 20-man raids. I just think it's not the same raids. Zul'Gurub, AQ20. You can make another raid or two that are 20-man raids. And I think you can have this horizontal progression that comes across. But I think that when you're talking about like, hey, this is the big boy stuff, 40-man raids. And I think that the way that power creep needs to be adjusted, I think there is some thought about from AQ40 to Nax, like the power creep scales like this. It's exponential and it starts spiking. Like all of a sudden it's like Molten Core, BWL, AQ40 Nax. And it's like, boom, it just pops off. The reason for this is not only are there more itemization points, okay? Itemization points are granted through eye level, right? Like an item has a quality, it has an eye level, and then it has a certain amount of budget itemization points that whenever they design the items, they give it those stats. So it has more of those. The eye level scales up more. But in addition to that, the designers in original vanilla started noticing, oh, there's certain stats that are like better, and they started optimizing the gear heavy. So like the tier 3 Nax gear is a really heavily optimized for whatever like the primary PvE spec was for whatever class. So like Dreadnought, the tier 3 warrior gear, crazy strong like prot warrior set. Insane, like tons of defense, like insanely good prot warrior set. The Paladin Redemption tier 3 set is a god tier. Like I think for its patch, the tier 3 Paladin gear is the best set of a specs gear that exists for all of WoW. If you play a Holy Paladin and you have full tier 3 at the end of vanilla, it is the most like beautifully optimized set of gear that it is insane. You are so powerful compared to every other patch. Tier 2.5, the AQ gear is like ret gear. It's pretty good, right? But nothing is like that Holy set. It is insanity. It is insane. They do all this stuff, so then you have this like exponential power spike that occurs because gear is more optimized, you have more itemization points, and the scaling has gone up. So that's why the end of vanilla kind of snowballs out of control. And to be honest with you, the end of Burning Crusade kind of snowballs like crazy too. Like season 4, like I think the best arena season is season 3, which is the tier 6. Then whenever Sunwell comes out, like there's just too much damage coming out. Yeah, there's just way too much damage and it ends up being insane. I think it'd be cool if you could play a lot of other humanoid races like Quilboar, but just be unfriendly or worse with every faction aligned place. Maybe you can do some repeatable grind to go up to unfriendly. See, like, I think stuff like that is like, that's like a whole nother thing at that point. Like maybe that idea is like cool, like the concept of that idea is cool, but now we're talking about something else entirely. So I talked a lot about systems so far. So instead of going in a row, let's talk about systems. We'll do the systems surveys next. There's 4 system surveys: economy, reputations, and more survey. Okay, let's go into this. How do you feel about gold sinks in WoW? I think gold sinks are good because they keep the value of gold high and prevent inflation. I do think gold sinks are good, but they're also very delicate. There's a huge problem with the economy in classic WoW that actually was not a problem on private servers, because on private servers, like whenever I played on Elysium, they were, and on Light's Hope, they were very, very like quick to be like, hey, this thing is bad. We're gonna adjust this farm so that people can't take advantage of this too much. And they really balanced the game around the cost of things in vanilla, the default costs of things like the cost of respecs and the cost of, you know, just getting your repairs done and all that kind of stuff. So I do think there's a big problem with the economy of the current version of classic WoW, where people just have way too much gold. Gold sinks are good, but like dual spec is a gold sink, but in reality, you save a ton of gold with dual spec, because originally dual spec was like 1,000 gold whenever it came out in like original Wrath of Lich King. And now it's 50 gold, which is the cost of one max cost respec. Here's my honest opinion about dual spec. I used to be a dual spec hater. I thought it was bad to add dual spec, especially at the cost in which they added it. I think I was wrong. Okay, I think the real issue, dual spec is something that makes the game a lot more accessible to a lot of people, especially at a lower level while you're leveling. That's why making it 50 gold, I think, is a fine cost, because you've made that cost a lot lower and you've made it very accessible. Or let's say I'm a healer. A healer is the best example. I'm a priest or I'm a shaman and I want to level as elemental, I want to level as shadow, but then I want to have my dual spec set to resto, to set to holy or discipline. That way, whenever I want to do a dungeon, it's easy for me to flip and then I can go heal for my group. It's really good and it helps people get to group more and get to do more dungeons, and it's wonderful. It's a great time. So I think that the cost of dual spec being low is actually a good thing, and I feel like I was wrong about this years ago whenever I was like first kind of thinking about dual spec, because it needs to be accessible at a low level, but I think there needs to be some other forms of things that can balance the economy at a higher level. Now, the number one way that you can fix the economy at a high level is by stopping the bots and stopping the gold selling and buying and all that. That is a huge, like Blizzard, come on. This was like not an issue on private servers. It was just not. Like they were just getting nuked. Insta. So how is it that this is a problem on Blizzard servers? Well, I'll tell you, one reason why is because it's so much bigger than it was on private servers, so it's hard to keep track of, to be fair. But also, I think they worry about like false positives and like banning the wrong people sometimes, because just the way that money moves, the way that gold moves and stuff now, and the way that resources and stuff move compared to back in the day, I do think it's harder to track. Now they can still track them and they will still find people and they will still ban people. People get banned all the time, but then they do also end up with like the occasional false positive. If that was not an issue, then this whole thing would be like it'd just be a non-issue. What kind of gold sinks would you be okay with in Classic? Cosmetic, recolored mounts, temporary buffs that increase your crafting skill, unlocking additional fast travel options, more expensive flight paths. See, like none of this, to me, like none of this stuff sounds classic, really. Consumables, flasks, elixirs. Well, this already is a gold sink, right? People make these. Items allow to get world buffs whenever. Maybe this is one of them, right? Because I don't think there should be a lot done to world buffs, but maybe I talked about this in the intro survey, where I think the real problem with world buffs comes from whenever people lose them and they're like, oh, I lost my parse. Like you shouldn't really design the game around parsing, but then there's also like emergent gameplay and the way that the community reacts to something. There's a lot of people that are into that. And with the concept of like player agency and letting people play the game the way they want to in that regard, if they want to parse, let them parse. I'm one of those players. I like that. Even though I don't think it's good to have everybody in the game play this way or be like forced to play this way, I personally enjoy that. And I think that if you have items that allow you to get world buffs whenever, maybe having this kind of a gold sink would be good, but then does that prevent people from actually running Dire Maul North to be able to go get their world buffs? Well, and then the argument is, well, you have hunters just having it open and just selling runs all day. Anyway, it's a very weird sort of thing, right? The classic WoW that we play today is not the classic WoW that we played in 2019. It's not what we played in 2021. It's not what we played in 2017, 2018, 2016 on private servers. And it is absolutely not the same as what we played in 2004. But that doesn't mean it's worse. And in some ways it's better. The most fun I ever had playing vanilla WoW, like gameplay wise, I would say was in 2017. The most fun I had like with my guild and stuff. I mean, I loved my guild in 2019, right? 2019, 2020, like that was an amazing time with Crusade. Socially, it was that time. I think in terms of gold sinks in Classic Plus, I think you should have stuff like, I think if you added a barbershop, I think that is fine. But I would say cosmetic stuff is fine, and maybe this, because this is something that like ties into something from the other one. Should Classic Plus have tabards for certain reputations that allow you to get rep from any high level dungeon, like in Wrath? So the reason why this was a change that they made this to where people would run other dungeons that they might not need gear or rep from in order to gain rep from another faction. But then that prevents people maybe from forcing people into going to do that type of content for that rep. I actually think they probably shouldn't do this. This is one of those things that I think is a trap. I think this is a trap question, because this is something that conceptually like sounds really good on paper, but then the behavior that ends up coming about off of this ends up not being good, because then people will just end up doing the path of least resistance, and everybody will want to run the same dungeon over and over again instead of doing everything. Should Classic Plus allow you to level certain reputations beyond Exalted as a prestige level, granting additional cosmetic items unique to that rep? This shouldn't even be a question. Like, this is like a whole nother game. They should just add stuff to Exalted. Like, here's the thing, if you add other levels of reputation, then that's like the new Exalted, effectively. Like, if you want to add a cosmetic item to Exalted, then that's cool, and then that works back into being this like gold sync type thing, right? But that does incentivize people to keep doing the rep. Yeah, but I don't feel like you really need to. At that point, would you want to see an account-bound item in Classic Plus that gave you double rep gains for that reputation once one character reaches Exalted? Every time I'm sitting here thinking about WoW and like what's good for the community and the game as a whole, I always think about it from like a bird's eye view. This is something that I think could be good because it might incentivize somebody who is a like one character type of player. This probably wouldn't really change much for me, but I usually only play like one character. But it might incentivize somebody who's like that to be like, oh, well, maybe I will level, maybe I will do this other stuff on an alt. And like doing these other reputation grinds and stuff like that, you might be willing to do more content, especially group content, social stuff with other people, if it's easier the second time around. Primary thing that people need to think about in the design of a Classic Plus is getting more people to do more types of content, or not even more people, more characters to do more types of content. Is a good thing. I think it is a good idea to go with that design principle and to help promote things that do that. More different types of content. With that being said, I think that this is a good idea to do to help promote people to like do other stuff on their alts that they might not do otherwise, so that a new player, and this is a regular design principle of vanilla WoW, is having things in the game that old players will want to run, will want to do, and to help the new players come up and to help pick these guys up. For example, I'm doing pre-made Battlegrounds. Not everybody who's in our pre-made Battlegrounds groups is a ranker. You don't have people that have a lot of like rated Battlegrounds experience, a lot of like honor grind experience. So like the strats are different.
Little Kratos scrotum here. This topic is a bit interesting. Delicacy is key, since any plus you add to Classic can easily turn it to retail minus.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What the fuck?
Thank you, little Kratos. Thank you. All right, you can zip yourself up too. Thank you. Anyway, I totally lost my train of thought. Let's keep going. Should Classic Plus feature additional minor reputations, very difficult grinds that grant prestige items, blood sale, but see, I think, so this kind of like, some of these questions end up pigeonhole, and I don't think it's on purpose, but it's just the nature of what a survey is. It'll pigeonhole you into certain types of answers. Like I said, I think that they should expand on the things that are already there instead of having too many stuff like this. There's no no. There's a yes and yes, but less, and there's no opinion. I think that they should expand on the things that are already there. Maybe they could add one or two things eventually, like especially in like a later patch, like related to like a Grim Batol or related to Oldham or something. Like maybe if they did that, that would be cool, right? These cosmetic types of fun side grinds, I think are cool. That was the first system survey. Let's go to the next system survey. Itemization. Oh, itemization. This is my wheelhouse, okay? I got a lot of opinions on itemization. A lot of opinions on itemization. So let's see where this goes. Should some BIS items for PvE be solely available as a reward for PvP participation? Okay. I don't like the way this question is worded, but my general opinion on how Classic WoW is designed and what is good for the MMO. I feel like if you are just a PvPer or if you are just a PvEer, you can get up to like 95% of your overall power as a player. You can almost get to as strong as you possibly can. But to truly be the most powerful character that you can create, I think you need to do everything in PvP and PvE. A lot of times, some of these items include more of like a side grade and allows you to maybe do something different than it does just straight up just be higher stats. And that's a big difference in classic WoW's design than it is with like retail's design of like, oh, just higher stats. No, that's not what we're talking about here. You know, you can even see that the way that like the PvP, the rank 14 gear is itemized differently than like the tier 2.5, like the AQ40 or the tier 2 gear. Like the AQ40 gear or the Blackwing Layer gear, it's itemized differently from that. And I think that's something to keep in mind. So something that happened in Classic Anniversary, and this is something that was a carryover from SOD, and it was a change to the honor system that they made that was really bad. So it's very easy to hit Grand Marshal or to hit High Warlord now. Very easy. The reason for this is they, not only did they get rid of like the RP like decay, which is actually something that I think they should have done, but they should have still had a threshold. So you get rid of decay, but you keep that threshold. In the new honor system, because if you get a certain amount of honor, you get the maximum amount of honor every week, and then there's no decay or anything. Basically, everybody ends up doing it. I didn't play Classic Anniversary, and I came back for Burning Crusade. A big social problem of the way that they had changed the system was it was considered to be so easy that a lot of guilds required, like a lot of high-end guilds would end up like requiring people like, oh, why don't you just do PvP? Why don't you just do the honor grind to get your gear here? So you need to, so there's like an expectation of you to get rank 14. There's an expectation of you to get Grand Marshal. There's an expectation for you to get High Warlord. And I think that is bad. Like socially for the community, I think that's bad. So to kind of go back to this question, the technical answer for this for me is yes. However, because of the way that they've reworked the honor system, I think it's not good. And it makes a lot of people feel like they have to go for rank 14. And I think that is not necessarily good. I think it should be more like side grades that are itemized differently. A lot of people will probably say no to this question, but it's because the question is a lot more nuanced than it's kind of giving credit for. I hate the term best in slot. So the term best in slot is actually really, really bad because it implies that there's only one item that really works. And one of the things that's really cool about vanilla is like you might have something that's like your best in slot should be like the whole suit, you know? Because you might have like different gear available to you and you can have like something that's almost just as good, but like, oh, I use a different ring here because I have hit here, so I don't need as much hit on this ring. So your stuff's itemized differently. But like an individual item being your best no matter what doesn't really work that way because you need to have like your hit capped and you need to have like your weapon skill and stuff like that. That best in slot is like it's like a bait term in Classic WoW. And it kind of sucks because that's like all the content, BIS lists and this and that. And most people don't really like care, right? They don't know about all like the nitty gritty of the game. They're like, I just want to know what I should get. It's fine, right? Totally fine. But I'm just saying that's just how it works. I love this take. I'm a priest and everyone always says go tailoring to get BIS. Well, I went alchemy, so I can say nope, can't go tailoring and just get the best healing gear from dungeons. Yeah, it's just the truth, right? There's different ways of playing the game. Should classes get a strong buff when they wear a full set of gear in their highest equipable equipment type? No, absolutely not, actually. Should progressive phases introduce gear that nearly always has higher base stats that gear previously available? No. Things like set bonuses, I mean, just no. Something that's really, really good about the design of itemization in Classic WoW, and also the way that they've designed the raids. In Molten Core, you have Thunder Fury that people want for all of vanilla. You have Hand of Rag that people want for most of vanilla, all the way up until Nax. You have Onslaught Girdle, you have Quick Strike Ring, yeah, Cauterizing Band is the healing ring. Like, you have these different random accessories and random items in Molten Core that are insanely good all the way through the next raid, Blackwing Lair, all the way through the raid after that, AQ40, and all the way into Naxxramas, the final raid of vanilla. Really good, right? Band of Acuria is another one because you have 2% hit on it. And I was talking about those breakpoints. You have these things that are introduced in like the lower level raids. So now you might have this Giga Chad, you know, Nax Ramus geared, AQ40 geared guy who's running Molten Core because he just wants one item in Molten Core. Whereas you have a guy who's like, hey, he's another player who's running his alt. Maybe it's a new player who's like learning to play the game. And you are taking these lower level characters, not players, but lower power level characters and pairing them with higher power level characters. So you're helping them up. Look, it's like you got the seniors helping out the sophomores and the freshmen and the juniors on like a sports team in high school, right? You're helping lift these guys up and you're carrying them a little bit, but you're allowing them to get a lot of stuff. Like, look, hey, all I want from this raid is Onslaught Girdle. Look, when Onslaught Girdle drops, Loot Council, Reserve, whatever it is, he's gonna get it. But all the tier gear that he already has, all the other stuff that he has, look, all this other gear is available to you that you just don't have on a lower power level character. And that is your catch-up mechanic. It is a built-in catch-up mechanic. A better example even of this, a more direct example of this, is ZG. So when you run Zul'Karub, you have the Primal Hakari, the enchants, right? You have the ZG enchants. So you have the head enchant and the legs enchant. The shoulders are from Nax, by the way, just for the record. But you have the head enchant and you have the leg enchant. And you need these things for the entire expansion. These are something that you can always use in vanilla. So I can have a Nax geared player go run ZG with my buddy's alts who he has an alt character, or like, hey, this is my new friend, he started playing the game, you know, he's a pug, you invite him to the raid, and then he can get a bunch of this other like catch-up gear in ZG. It's very cool. This is very different than a retail WoW. In retail WoW, when a new patch comes out, you play that patch and that's like what you play. In vanilla WoW, you play the whole expansion. There's mounts as well. That makes people want to keep running ZG. That's sort of evergreen type of content. But yeah, absolutely, it should not always have higher base stats. This is retail. This is retail WoW right here. Do you like that certain items can remain powerful for several phases? Yes. Should legendary, it's funny, I talked about all this stuff. Should legendary classes always be weapons or also other gear slots? You can add a new legendary and it be like another gear slot, but I think weapons are better because they're cooler. I feel like if you have other gear slots for legendaries, if it's like a plate helmet, then it only is for plate. I think this is the reason why whenever they added like legendary cloaks eventually, legendary rings too, right? Like I think having accessories so that everybody, like any class could use them might be better. I think that's why they ended up doing that in the later expansions. I do think that if you added a new legendary and didn't make it a weapon, I think that would be okay. If you have a new legendary added, it's gotta be something you can see, right? So maybe you make it the cloak. Yeah, like if they made Gorehowl like a legendary axe or something. Yeah, I mean, I think an axe would be cool for horde players because like orcs would then get the weapon skill bonus, but I do think weapon skill probably needs a full-on rework or something. Should legendary weapons items remain BIS for the entire lifetime of Classic? That is how they are right now with Thunder Fury and Atish. For Thunder Fury, it's for the way that you use it. But you can have a higher DPS one-hander, and you can do more DPS with something other than a Thunder Fury if you're doing DPS. But if you're tanking with a Thunder Fury, that's as good as it gets. If you are using an Atish, it's the best. Hand of Rag, on the other hand, Hand of Rag and Ashkandi are kind of like 1A, 1B. Like there's like different scenarios in which you would want a hand of an Ashkandi instead of a Hand of Rag. Dark Edge of Insanity, I think, is better than Hand of Rag. Let me look this up. And then some of the stuff in Nax is better. Like Might of Menethil is better. Corrupted Ashbringer is better. Yeah, Dark Edge is higher damage than Hand of Rag too. Part of me wants to think yes, but that would mean they would rework Hand of Rag. I think more than anything, like I think Hand of Rag is cool. They should leave Thunder Fury as is. They should leave Atish as is. But if they were to add more legendaries, like, look, they have the quest chain to uncorrupt the Ashbringer or whatever. I think having something like the way that you could uncorrupt the Ashbringer in a Classic Plus would be cool. Maybe a very similar quest to what Agrand and them designed earlier. So that would be a two-handed sword. I think you need an axe. So it'd be like Ashbringer, Gorehowl. Maybe you would even scale up Hand of Rag. So you would have axe, sword, mace. But would you make them all equal? I don't think you would make them all equal. I think making them all equal is a bad idea. They all need to have a little bit of nuance and a little bit different. Should weapon skill remain in the game? Well, here's the thing. I think weapon skill needs a rework, but it's an entirely different angle than what this question is asking. Weapon skill needs a rework. I think if they sped up the rate at which you level up, I think that'd be fine. Weapon skill is too powerful. Like weapon skill is insane. Like if you are a human and you have maces or swords, that's 3% hit chance, because that 5 more weapon skill treats you like you are 1 level higher. It's like I'm a level 61 hitting a level 60 mob if I'm hitting somebody level 60, and then 1 level up difference is 3% chance to miss. That is like insane. If you do this, then you completely have to rework how your character's gear set is, right? Which is when we talk about BIS and all that, best in slot. That's why I'm saying like best in slot is kind of like a bait term because it's about the whole suit. You need to hit those breakpoints. What stats, if any, should be added to gear in Classic Plus? I think none. Like maybe expertise and resilience, if anything, but like there already is some magic pen. There already is some armor pen. Like some of this stuff already exists. All these stats actually exist except for expertise and resilience. I don't think they should add resilience. What I think they should do is I think they should reduce the budget, or sorry, they should reduce the itemization cost of stamina like they did in Burning Crusade, maybe. But resilience I think is too much. But you shouldn't be adding anything really new. But like this is if you're making new gear and it has a little bit of haste or something on it, and sure. These stats all exist in vanilla. Should resistances remain as a stat on items? Yes. Should gear score eye level be a relevant stat for play? Absolutely not. Should healing power and spell power be combined into one stat? This is a good question. I think no. And the reason for this is whenever you're talking about like loot and gear distribution for people, having some items being more for healers and some items being more for casters is good for like cutting down who's getting what. But here's something I do think is probably a good change to make. In Burning Crusade patch 2.3, they made a change to healing to give part of plus healing. It also gave you damage. Now this made double healer a thing in Burning Crusade arenas because it like increased their spell power, so their offensive power was a little bit better. But I think that these should not be combined into one stat, because if they're combined into one stat, then you now have one value and then you have to rework all of the spell power ratios for every class. Should attack power and range attack power be combined? A lot of people are gonna say yes to this, but if you say yes to this, you're kind of nerfing hunters. I think what they should do is melee attack power should also apply to ranged attack power as a stat. Because I think with ranged attack power, so look at this, look at the cost of ranged attack power versus the cost of attack power. So if you combined ranged and melee attack power, if you combine them, then what ends up happening is items that give you ranged attack power that would be converted to attack power, then they would end up scaling down. And the balance of this changes because it buffs their melee attacks a lot. I'm thinking about like Blessing of Might. Like Blessing of Might increases your melee attack power, but not your ranged attack power in vanilla. So like Blessing of Might doesn't do anything for hunters. If they merge them, then yeah, you would have to reweight it. But also if you merge them, then that actually ends up being a massive buff for hunters, because the stuff that gives them ranged attack power, you'd have to rework hunters entirely. I actually think it's fine if they're willing to rework hunters entirely. I think it makes things easier and not as complicated, but they would have to do a full rework of the hunter class. Should crit and hit chance be changed to a rating instead of a flat percentage? No, I like the percentages. What do you guys think? I like the percentages. Should casters have a base stat, intellect, or something else that gives them spell power, like how strength gives attack power? No. They clearly don't need that. Like if they did that, you'd have to do a complete rework of the class. Should Classic have the ability to reforge your gear? Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The next thing we're gonna talk about is the mechanics. What version of layers would you wanna see? I think they should have no layers. How would you feel if spell batching was in Classic? A lot of people are gonna say remove it entirely. A lot of people said that they should have it in Classic, and I think they were wrong. I still have the same opinion on spell batching that I have. I think the way that they did spell batching on private servers was the proper way to do spell batching, because it ends up balancing the game and allows people to play like across the world on one server. It balances the game's latency, but it should be a combat. It should be a combat batch. You either should not have it at all, and it should be the way the game is now, or it should be a 200 millisecond combat batch, not 400 like they had back in the day, but a 200 millisecond combat only batch instead of what they did in Classic 2019, where they made the whole game feel laggy. Because every interaction, every time you talk to a vendor, every time you click something, every time you looted something, they put the entire game on a 400 millisecond batch, and that was a huge mistake. How do you feel about the measures taken by Blizzard to prevent boosting within dungeons? I don't even like the phrase boost. I call it, let's keep it 2004, okay? Let's keep it 2004. Power leveling, okay? We're bringing back the phrase power leveling. You can let people power level, and I think that's fine. And I do think that you need to do certain things to prevent, like let people power level, cool. But you need to account for the times, and you need to adjust certain things to prevent like the ridiculous gold farming type of stuff. How would you feel if mobs scaled with your level in the open world? No level scaling. To finish what I was talking about here, I feel like they need to adjust things to keep people from snowballing the economy out of control. Like if certain farms become too valuable like certain gold farming methods become too valuable, I think they should step in and be like, yo, we're gonna put a stop to this. We're gonna make a change to stop this. And if it's bad, then they should revert it. Just do things. I'm a big believer, just do it. Just go out there and just do things. That is cool. And if it's not good, if it doesn't work, change it back. How do you feel about various currencies in WoW? Currencies are important for horizontal progression. Use them when you need to. Sometimes I actually don't like having a whole lot of different currencies. I feel like when you have a whole lot of different currencies, it ends up being not that great. I think it gets kind of weird. Like that's one of the things that they did in SOD that all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you need this now? Oh, you need this now? What does this do? And it started to feel like way too dank. What version of Consumables would you want to see in Classic Plus? This is one of those things, like I said, pre-patch, then tweak one way, tweak the other way. I don't think you can really make them more accessible and cheaper. I think that's something that is contingent on the economy of the server. If you make them more accessible and cheaper, you're like nerfing herbalism and alchemy as trades. Consumables and stuff are cool, and I think you should just have them, like, let the kids play, let it be what it is in vanilla. I think that the flask and like the Guardian Battle Elixir stuff in Burning Crusade, I personally like this. I like the way that it is in Burning Crusade quite a bit. I think it's fine. In vanilla, like it doesn't feel like vanilla if you can't just load up on everything. You gotta have your consumes in game, you gotta have your consumes in real life. Okay, that's how this works. Okay, the complete and total immersion. Okay. And finally, we're gonna get to the last of the systems question for this. Oh, PvP, here we go. Should there be war mode? No war mode. How would you rate the original PvP honor system in Classic WoW? A lot of people are going to say it was, you're gonna get a lot of ones. You're gonna get a lot of these. The more and more that I understand it, the more better that I think it is, but I think it needs a rework. And I think the current honor system is also bad. The way that they've reworked it is currently bad. I even said back in like 2018, 2019 that they should consider making changes. But the changes that I think they should make, you should maintain the honor threshold that you need to gain, but you should get rid of the decay that drops your rating down. So if you get Grand Marshal, you should be a Grand Marshal forever, right? I do think that's cool. Like it's weird that like I'm running around with my Grand Marshal Greatsword and I'm like, I have Sergeant over my head from not PvPing anymore. I mean, really, here's what they should do in Classic Plus. You should be able to set your title because you should have more titles and stuff, cosmetic stuff added. And I think that any title that you earn, you should just be able to put that title up. How would you change the original honor system? It is not the same system. This is not how it is today. This is not how, I think this is a big misconception. It is not how it is today because there's also like hard preset bracket caps. Now, with that being said, by the way, I don't even know if my solution is a good solution after seeing how it is today. I don't actually know if my solution is a good solution, but I think the original rank 14 system is better than it is now. I think now it went too far the other way and it's like stupid. Like I would say like now it's like a 4 and original is a 5 or something. Or like, I know that sounds insane, but like if you really like understand like how the system works, I think the original was better than how it is today. Because now it's like, now there's a lot of people that they think they have to do the rank grind when before they were like, F the rank grind. But now it's like the other way around. How would you feel like if rank was uncapped, where upon hitting max rank, you continue prestige, but gain no additional power? I mean, that sounds cool, but like, I don't think it's necessary. Would you want arenas in Classic? This is such a hard one. I feel like if you have arenas, it should be all three. Like 5v5 is the most balanced. Even in Burning Crusade, the first like official Blizzard tournament was 5v5. They balanced the game around 5v5. If you look at 2s and you look at 3s, it's not very balanced at all. And one of the concerns that I have with Arena and Classic Plus is that it might just be kind of bad. I don't know. It might just be kind of bad. But again, if you kind of line things up with that starting point of balance being Burning Crusade pre-patch, maybe it won't be so bad. But then what's the reward for the arenas? Do you get PvP gear? Do you get cosmetics? I mean, I love the ladder. I love the scoreboard. I love saying, hey, this guy's Gladiator, right? Getting a Gladiator mount on the seasons and stuff like that. That's cool. How would you feel about a 1v1 arena ranked dueling system? I think this is cool. At a certain point, what are we doing here, right? Like maybe, but like we'll see. Should be able to mock run, which means the loser dies and they're never able to. As a believer in player agency, sure, why not? I think it's stupid. I would not do this, but sure. As a believer in player agency, sure. A duel for deletion. Which of the following would you want to see on PvP gear, if any? None of this. When I think of PvP set bonuses, I'm thinking like Hammer of Justice reduced cooldown, like it is now. So it's like, yeah, I think I need to be like that. Your Mod Karat tournament was one of the coolest WoW events ever. Yeah, dude. Dude, I'm so proud of the Mod Karat tournament, man. The original name for the tournament was gonna be Bloodsport. So Tips and I talked about it and we were like, I was like, dude, I remember I was traveling. I was in a hotel and I was on a call with Tips. And I'm like, I want to do a tournament and I want to call it Bloodsport. And I want Bloodsport to be like a seasonal thing, like Bloodsport season 1, Bloodsport season 2. And we were like, let's do 1. And we did the 1, and it was the Makara tournament. It ended up being the biggest WoW event in history. It's insane. That was crazy. I think at the time they said it was the biggest WoW event, period. Not the most watch time, but the most peak viewership in history, which is insane. Please do another. I mean, we might do a dueling tournament. We talked about doing maybe a Burning Crusade dueling tournament. Candidly, I don't really like Burning Crusade dueling very much, but we might do a Burning Crusade dueling tournament. Should dishonorable kills exist? So the reason why they had dishonorable kills back in the day is they added dishonorable kills to have like certain quest NPCs couldn't get griefed for low-level players. And that's why they added dishonorable kills. There's a very real reason for this. Now, here's the problem. If somebody gets a dishonorable kill, it affects the entire raid group and it Fs people's honor for the week. Dishonorable kills need to be reworked. How important is it to you that Blizzard adds new Battlegrounds and Classic Plus? I do think they should add a Shara Crater. I think a Shara Crater, but if you add too many Battlegrounds, then you're splitting the player pool of like who's queuing for what. But I think a Shara Crater would be something really cool to add because it was like an old school Battleground that never got finished and got tossed. Should more open world PvP objectives be added? Yes, but only after making the ones that are in game now more fun. Maybe you don't change the ones that are in game right now. I mean, I think both of these. I think open world PvP objectives are cool. Rate the following world PvP objectives. South Shore versus Terran Mill. So this is like a, wait, there's no actual objective for this. This was just like this is like an old wives' tale. Like, oh, I remember the South Shore versus Terran Mill battles because he had 2 cities real close to each other. But this isn't like a real thing. This only happened before Battlegrounds were implemented. Killing faction leaders, I think, should give big honor. World boss tag wars in various zones. Oh man, these were fun, but damn. Scylla Sands capture, just whatever. Watchtower control and EPL. It's like whatever. I didn't do the Blood Moon. I didn't do Blackrock. I heard both of these were really good. Is that true? Battle for Ashenvale was okay. The STV one was cheeks. And maybe it was this one. People said I think it was the Blackrock one was really good. Man, the World Boss Tag Wars, this sounds insane because I feel like this is just like really autistic. But like I'm thinking about it, I just keep thinking like, damn, this was really fun, wasn't it? Like World Boss fights were fun. But they were more fun on private than they were on retail because the lag. And whenever there was not lag, it was really good. I said retail, I meant classic. How should the following combat mechanics function in PvP? What? Like, I actually hate that this is a question. Should resurrection timer be changed when you die repeatedly? Yeah, I think they should be shorter. Should rated BGs be added? This is an interesting question. If they were to rework the honor system to be based more on rated Battlegrounds or something, I worry about splitting the people queuing for Battlegrounds too much. But man, I love queuing as a pre-made, and queuing pre-made versus pre-made feels really good. But it also feels really good to steamroll sometimes. Like I lead a lot of pre-made BGs from like just from ranking days, and even I looked at, I think our total record I think is like 85-6. I'm pretty sure for like group PvP. It's actually nuts. I'm like a 50-50 on this with RBGs. Should solo be added? No. Should war games be added? Unrated pre-made versus pre-made. Yeah, war games are good for events. War games are great for events. Let people make content out of it. Should players be allowed to toggle off XP for PvP to twink? No. Here's the thing. You could just not get XP. Like, I think you should let people twink. I'm thinking, will this make people play more or will it make people play less Battlegrounds while they're leveling up? If everybody's a twink, then if you're just like randomly like just doing a Battleground for fun while you're leveling, then you're gonna be like, oh, I don't want to play because I'm so outgeared. But you have a lot of twinks anyway. I feel like the double-edged sword of I'm a twink, but I can't play this character doing other stuff is maybe a good thing because it's like there's a risk there with like not leveling up instead of like just turning off your XP. I think having that risk is maybe a downside, but will that just keep people from doing it altogether? Because they're scared? I don't think so. Dude, I think the 59 twink bracket is gonna be insane in Burning Crusade, by the way, because of the boost. Just leave it like it is in vanilla. Should kills in PvP give XP? No. Then, okay, if you have this, then you should do this. If kills in PvP give XP, then yes, but then you should be able to turn off your XP. So if it's this, then this. But if it's this, then this. Or like this. Should the PvP trinket cooldown be reduced from 5 minutes? This requires like testing. If you're gonna have arenas, this does require some testing, because maybe CC is too powerful if it's 5 minutes in an arena, and it should be 2 minutes. But if you're not gonna have arenas, I do think in arenas, if it's 5 minutes, it's gonna be too long, but maybe not. Should Battlegrounds launch with potentially arena or other new people be released weeks or months after launch or right at the jump? I think you need to give it a little bit of time. I think you need to slow roll it a little bit. Should Honors has been put in without Battlegrounds. I told Blizzard years ago, I said, I think if you did it for 2 weeks with no Battlegrounds, that's a good idea. I think 2 weeks, no Battlegrounds is fine, because it gives people that world PvP sort of feeling. But after 2 weeks, people are gonna lose their minds, and that is exactly what happened. Because phase 2 of Classic really did permanent damage to the community. It got way too bad. Like the first week, everybody was like, oh yeah, this is great. And the second week was like, okay, like this is, you know, we're still moving, we're still trucking along. And then week 3 rolled around, people were like, God, I hate my life. I hate my life. Yeah, basically if you weren't a stealther. So like, I think if they did it for 1 or 2 weeks, I think that's fine. But they made a huge mistake in phase 2, and it sucks, because I specifically, I had an opportunity to talk to Blizzard, and I told them, I was like, I don't think you should do this for more than 2 weeks. And then they ended up doing it for a month, and it did a lot of damage to, I think it did permanent damage to the community, because now there's people that are like terrified of playing on a PvP server. it's like kind of funny. I mean, like, I understand. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. But it's like funny that like something happened that made that much impact permanently on a community of the game. Why no solo shovel that gives solo players ability to PvP in arenas? That's not what Classic is. That's not Classic WoW. We're gonna do more of these Classic Plus surveys. Again, a couple things. This is a fan project. It's not official. It's not actually what Blizzard has to say. It's just an interesting sort of fun thing for us to do, and to kind of just talk about like the potential of a Classic Plus. There's going to be a Classic roadmap announcement January 29th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I will be live. I'll be live here on Twitch. I'll be live on Kick. I'll be live on YouTube. Personally, I don't think we're going to get Classic Plus news, but I think we're going to get a lot of breadcrumbs. I think they are doing a Classic Plus, and I know the intent of SOD was to like throw everything at the wall and see what sticks for a potential future of Classic. So I really do think that they want to do a Classic Plus. I personally am very worried about them doing it the right way and making sure that it's done within the scope and within the essence of what vanilla WoW really is. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know this was a long one, but we're gonna do the player survey and the world survey in the future too. Watch out for those videos. Come check out my streams every day. I stream everything at this point, right? Like I'm the core, and I come from Classic WoW, and that's where it all comes from for me. But I'm back with Burning Crusade. I love Burning Crusade. It's my favorite time in the game in WoW, but we're still gonna do some roleplay stuff, right? GTA roleplay. GTA 6 is coming out this year. No Pixel is coming out. I'm still doing my sports stuff. We're doing Coach Esfand, the travel, the IRL stuff. I have a lot of stuff this year with Red Bull coming up. Now that we signed with Red Bull officially. Look, I got my wings for Burning Crusade, and I got my wings in real life too. So it's good. It's all good now, okay? We finally got our consumes popped in real life. We're good. So yeah, good stuff coming. Make sure to join the Twitter community, the X community. Join my Twitter community, join my Discord, follow my streams, do all that stuff. Subscribe, like, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. I'm really passionate about this, and I want the best version of Classic WoW for everybody. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time.